Greetings, my friends on LinkedIn. Lately, we have been hearing more about the data privacy law, and every country has their own perspective toward their law. Of course, we try to ensure that the human beings are protected, their data is being protected, and there are not fraudulent things which are happening. So, for this second episode, I invite my guest, Mr. Nirmesh Kumar, who has extensive 22 years of experience in um, data restorations, data recovery solutions, data assessment solutions, and has presented dark data with an organization and maintained data sanity. Nirmesh, welcome on to this second episode of our podcast, The Collaborative Canvas with Ankesh Saxena.
Thank you, Ankesh, for giving me this opportunity.
So we spoke a lot about in the recent times as to why data privacy is important. But for a lot of people, they probably don't know what data privacy is all about. So how about you give us some insights on what DPDP law is and how we can get an understanding as why the privacy is so important.
Fantastic. Well, first of all, I'm excited to be here. So thanks a lot, Ankesh. I already communicated. Now, regarding DPDP law. So DPDP is actually Digital Personal Data Protection Law, which was passed in August 2023 by Modi government last year. And this particular law is unique in itself. I will come to the uniqueness point, but let me give you some important points which are covered by this DPDP law. So the first thing which it talks about is having a consent management system which can collect consent from the people whose data you are collecting. So if you are an organization and you are collecting data, you need to take consent. And consent has to be very proper, which means it should explicitly state for what purpose the data is being collected, for what duration the data is being collected, who is our data security officer with whom you can contact, and how you can post your grievances so that our grievances team can resolve your problems. So all these are important and are to be followed by the Indian organizations. But the most unique thing which I also love and which makes our Indian data privacy law totally different from the European laws or the US laws or the laws world over. And that important thing is the law says that the notification has to be in the language which is understandable by the data principal. Now here the data principal is the one who is giving the data and data fiduciary is the one who is collecting the data. So if the person who is giving data is Tamilian or is SMEs or he is from, let's say, Karnataka, then your notification has to be in Tamil language or SMEs language or in the in Kannada language. Now, this is the uniqueness. So it makes things so easy for the person who gives the data so that he understands what are the repercussions, what are his rights, and how he can work on those things in the coming days if he has some grievance. So that's the uniqueness, and I love the way things have been incorporated in this law.
So considering that there's a vast amount of data which is lying in India, it's like huge population. And not everybody is very thorough about the privacy law, but they're definitely very worried about their privacy. Are there any companies who actually manage these data and they give some kind of relaxation to the people who are actually delivering that data to them?
Well, companies managing the data in India, well, see, this field is a niche field for India. In Europe and US, there were lot many companies and there are lot many companies which have expertise on this. But when you come to India, because there was no such strict law, there was an IDS law which was covering to this data privacy to a very small extent only. But now that the new law has come, this field is totally open. There are very few companies which take care of data and take care in the manner in which the DPDP law requires. You have some big guns. I mean, all the big IT companies, Wipro, HCL. I myself have been a part of HCL for 16 years, so I know the company in and out. They do manage data, and then there are other big guns which also manage data. But managing data is a bit of different thing. When it comes to maintaining data privacy and then doing things according to the data privacy, then it requires a different set of skills. And the DPDP law clearly specifies that the data security officer is required, and there is a profile for the data security officers. As of today, you have, I believe, you have only 5 to 6% of the companies in the market, in Indian market rather, which have a data security officer or a team which looks after data security, and those are the big corporates. If you come to the middle level, or if you come to the lower order, the startups, they don't have a data security officer, and they also don't have the means and know-how on how to handle it. So if you talk about the companies who do it well, there are hardly any companies who are actually well aware, leave alone doing it and following the law. That is the situation.
And I understand you being founder of Bandiz. So exactly how Bandiz is helping out on the data privacy part?
So Bandiz, in last year when this particular law was passed in August, we realized there is an opportunity. And in Bandiz, we decided to launch this line of business, which takes care of data privacy only. From November itself, we started working on it, and we know that in 2024, it is going to start big and may scale up. And so what we are providing is a few products which can help organizations meet the DPDP compliance. Most importantly, we provide a consent shield. Consent shield is the name of our primary product, which not only collects the data and take consents, but it also encrypts the data, so maintains the protection of the data. It also provides the revocation of the withdrawal of the consent opportunity to the data principal. It also provides the means to modify the data for the data principal. And apart from all this, this is not complete. There is a lot more to come. So we have the data usage report coming up for the data principal. So if you put your data out there for an organization at a click of button, you should be able to know in the last 15 days who accessed my data, in the last 20 days who used my data for what purpose. All that should come in a single dashboard, and that is the uniqueness of our product. Moreover, as of now, today, we are keeping focus on the DPDP law. However, we plan to scale it. We plan to make it compliant to the GDPR and the US laws and various other laws. So this is where we start, and that is what we see in the future. Ankesh.
So consent shield, Nirmesh, as much as I understood. So if I am actually holding a data of say about 100 people for my marketing requirements, and I have a consent from them that I can use them any point of time. Do I need to upload this data onto your consent shield, right? Consent shield. So do I need to upload this data onto the consent shield and then you manage that data? Is it not a third party involvement of my data?
This may not be the right way. We just do not want any third party to get involved. So this will not be the right way that you collect the data and then upload it to the consent sheet. If we have to totally remove the role of the third party, then the best way is the person who has to submit his data, he directly uploads. So either he directly uploads on a web portal, or he uploads via a mobile device, or if in case he is not internet savvy, he's an older person who has not handled mobile or is not comfortable on internet, then there can be kiosk. So if he goes to the office of the company, there are kiosks available with artificial intelligence facility available. He clicks there and he can interact, talk, provide the data, provide his Aadhaar number and the detail. The machine records the data and then goes. So the point is, the data principal himself should upload the data, and then only we can minimize the risk.
Yeah, I think in this way, it is more of protecting your own identity and you're uploading it with your consent, which is where it is becoming easier. So technically, if any SME company or a brand who holds this data, they cannot simply just go and upload the data onto a consent shield and give a third party an access to the entire data. This makes sense. But this was more of a brand side of it and principal side of it as well. But how do we convey this effectiveness or the importance of this consent and preferences to the customers?
Okay. Well, see, for customer, there are two things which are very important. First is his brand should be trusted brand. Okay. And second thing is he should be safe from all the penalties which are possible from the government side, as he should comply to everything. So once again, I say first is trust, and the second thing is safety. Now let's talk about both these things. When we talk about trust, if you are running a business and you say, I maintain the privacy of your data, you yourself will upload the data, I myself will not be able to check or look at the data unless you give a consent. So if you maintain that type of privacy, then the people or your customers are going to trust you. So the brands need to gain trust of their customers. And then the second thing is that they are complying to the norms of the law, and so they are safe from the penalties. So that becomes the second most important thing. So how I convey to my customer, I tell them, see, in order to do a good business, you want to build a trust with your customer, here it is, my product helps you build that trust. Second thing is, you want safety for your business and compliance, here it is. So these are the two things which the product provides, and moreover, in case of any doubt, we and our team is there to help you out. That's how we go.
In a way, you're also protecting the client and the customers at the same time while looking at principal by themselves. Okay.
Yeah.
So Nirmesh, we understand that this is more from the principal side as an individual side, and then it is more of a brand side. But there's a lot of data lying on the social media as well. One of the questions I've been hearing that, is there, in what ways can privacy measures for social media data encourages creativity and collaboration? But when it's such a vast data which is lying there, and it needs protection. We're talking about what are basic privacy measures in terms of protecting your data on the social media platforms?
Okay, Ankesh, I will put a query on your basic statement itself. The data which is lying on social media, is it really requires protection? That is one question to be answered first. So let us look at the DPDP law, what it says about the social media and what it says about the information which is lying in public. The law passed in India is very clear on this, that any data which is already in public, which has been made public by somebody, can be used by some other person even without taking consent from the first person. But then this is only for the individual, it is not for the companies or the corporate. So the corporates cannot use that particular data which is lying on the social media and then utilize them and do whatever they want. However, law says that an individual can always pick up a data which is available on the social media or any public platform. If the data is available publicly, it means that the person to whom this particular data belongs, he has already made it public. It's a consent he wants the world to use. Then the law is not applicable on you. Pick it up, use it, go ahead. Okay, so that is number one thing. Now, second thing is, you are saying security of the data which is lying on the social media. Well, I have not seen somebody putting up his Aadhaar number or the bank account number on the social media. However, somebody who has made a theft, has stolen that data, might put up to give a bad name to somebody else. Now that definitely comes under a violation, and that is something which can be penalized. But for that particular thing, you don't require a DPDP law. If the data is stolen and then posted on the social media, you do not require a DPDP law to be applicable on it. The normal laws which are available in India can capture the person, penalize him because he has stolen it. Okay, so that is the case of stealing. But then if we do not consider this case, look at the other cases, there are hardly any confidential or sensitive data being posted on the public platform, which means if you are putting up something which is standard, then the second question is it your personal information? Now, if you're putting up your home address on the social media, then, well, it is your personal information. But because you are putting it on your social media, it will be treated as consent for some other individual, and so it do not requires protection. However, only one case which I can think of wherein the privacy law will come into effect when it comes to social media. Any organization, any corporate, if picks up some personal data from the platform and uses it, then it can be penalized. And that comes under DPDP law. So this is only one case wherein I see that DPDP law comes into effect. In rest of the cases, be assured the social media is full of data, but it is not confidential or sensitive data. Until the time you are using a data which is not that critical, there is not much worry or there is not much fuss around it. So I believe privacy concern only happens when stealing happens, as on social media, more or less, you don't need to consider much.
Yeah, I mean, I think considering that, we should be aware what data we are actually putting on social media. Of course, you mentioned that if you're putting your address, then you're actually giving a consent to the party on which you're putting up an address. But there are a lot of cases, we know there are a lot of fraudulent activities happen across India where people get to know the numbers. And if you remember, we actually had this conversation that when I'm entering a society, a building, they generally take our number. I don't want to give them the consent. I may probably, give them a wrong number because eventually those numbers are getting reached out to people who are around us, may think of, they may think of using that number for any other purpose, probably anything which is more like, they call you up and make a fraudulent activity and you're not aware of it. How can we protect that kind of an open data sources which are lying with the properties or with the buildings?
So the person who is collecting the information, let's say the security guard is picking up your phone number, and this security guard has been deployed by the RWA or the society in charge. Is that society or the RWA properly registered? If it is properly registered, then it has to comply. If it is not registered, then of course it is an illegal case wherein you have not registered. So that's a separate story. I won't go into the detail, but a registered entity which is collecting data has to follow DPDP law. So when the phone number is collected, at that point of time, some notification should appear on the screen, maybe on your mobile or on security guard's mobile, wherever, wherein you have the opportunity to say yes or no while giving your phone number. You have the liberty to deny and say no to it. So this sort of notification is important on the mobile application of the security guard, or if it sends to you, the notification, that is far, far better. So that's how it should go.
But otherwise, there's no specific control that we can actually think of because once the data is being on that register where the security guard is taking the numbers, unless and until they have an app in place where they're storing everything, the photos, the phone numbers, whosoever is entering the society, and it's being complied with the law itself, we know it is protected. But there have been cases where they're putting up the numbers onto the register and anybody from the marketing of any brand would reach out to them, say, I can give you 10,000 rupees, give me the register, and they take it the register and they use it. Because eventually we see a lot of people actually call us for credit cards inquiries and this and that. We know we've been circulating our numbers to the number of brands. We don't know who actually gave that number out. How can we protect ourselves from those threats as well?
So you are right that if it is registered on the paper or on the register, then there is no law. DPDP law is not applicable on the manual data. It is only applicable on the digital data. But if in case that register, the picture of that paper or the page is taken, and using the Google tool, if you digitize it, then the DPDP law is applicable. So if RWA is taking or the society is taking the detail on the paper, but after that it is digitizing the data, then the DPDP law is applicable. And the moment they digitize, they have to follow all the norms. They cannot share it with somebody. And if they are sharing it, have they taken your consent? If they have not, then they can be penalized. So to stop all this, the way to go is the notification should contain the details that it will be digitized at some point of time and it will be shared with so and so person. If they do not specify this in the notification, then they can be trapped. So if you find that they are leaking out data, you can always take an action against them. That is totally open, and DPDP law is going to help you out, Ankesh.
Okay. I think that's an overall holistic view of how data privacy works. With the context of market research, it's could be to a certain extent the same story or a different one, because within market research, when you collect the data, whether it's offline data or an online data, you comply and you also let the principal comply to it, that when they're sharing it with us, they know exactly what we are going to do that. We don't promote the data as in market research don't promote the data. They use it for the survey purpose so that they can identify the social economic class of a person, or they can actually use the data to reconnect with them for future studies. As long as the data is being protected with the research organizations, the compliance or anything which is related to fines would not impose on them. But coming back to the privacy concerns and the fines, Nirmesh, can you tell us more about how DPDP law would affect if there are not complying to the law and there are issues with it, complying to the law?
Okay, so well, first of all, let's talk about corporates. So if corporates are not complying to the law and after even receiving a notice from the government, it is found that things are going haywire. I mean, they can be booked under law. So the maximum penalty, which is stated in the DPDP law, is 250 crores. No, 250 crores is huge, huge, huge. And I mean, lesser can be anything, but then the government has already mentioned top lines that there can be penalties of, let's say, 50 crores or 100 crores, depending on what type of folly has been done. For example, if the children's data is being leaked, okay, then the maximum penalty is 200 crores. And if even if it is, let's say, there is no data breach, but there are issues and the grievances were not resolved, and then the data principal is reaching to the top, the data protection board in India, then there are various penalties ranging till 50 crores or even lesser. I mean, it all. So those are few figures which are stated, but then once again, these are the figures which are actually guidelines in the DPDP law. However, the Data Protection Board is expected next month, maybe by April, and then once again there will be a stamp on these figures. But 250 crore stating in the DPDP law itself makes a big impact and tells us how serious the government is. Now let's talk about an individual penalty. The corporate penalties are the one which I stated a few minutes back. If an individual is doing this thing, that they are taking somebody else's data, and that data is not in the public domain, so the personal data has been picked up, and then this individual is making it public, and then another clause is that it should not be for the domestic use. So if in case it is for the domestic use, then the DPDP law allows it. If it is not for the domestic use, then DPDP law do not allows it. So if such a situation comes, then on an individual, the penalties are starting from 10,000, but that's a small amount. However, it can go as big, and there is no upper capping stated in the DPDP law for such case. I believe they have given good information and guidelines for the penalties in the DPDP law, but the upcoming Data Protection Board is going to outline very clearly with clear-cut penalties, and that will make picture more clear in India.
Yeah, I think with the advent of DPDP law coming into place in India, there's a lot on the shoulders of data privacy officer. Can you just tell us a little more about what are the advantages and disadvantages of being a data privacy officer within a company?
Well, within a company and outside a company, two cases are there. And if you are part of the company and you are data security officer, then implementing things becomes a bit easier because you are part of the machinery. So, well, if you want some action to be taken, and then you have the opportunity to connect directly within the team and get the things done, make sure that things are implemented properly, and then you are more comfortable making your company compliant. However, if in case you are not part of the company, you are outside the company, and then you are a data security officer for that particular company, you are limited to giving suggestion after analyzing the current situation, and then it is the accountability of the organization or the company to comply to the suggestions which you are saying. So in the second case, the accountability do not rest on your shoulders. That is one thing. Secondly, getting things done becomes complex, and therefore any penalties, anything happens, I mean, it's totally sole responsibility of the company. So that is the difference and the challenges you face in both the roles.
So thank you so much, Nirmesh. We actually got a very holistic view of data privacy and what are the roles and responsibilities of a data privacy officer, how an individual can get impacted, how a brand can get impacted. And at the end of the day, it is your data. So you have to keep it protected. For anything that you need with respect to how further this can be ensured, how you can actually do that as a brand, if you really need have some questions with around data privacy and the DPDP law or even international data protection law, you can definitely reach out to Nirmesh for whose details and um, contact points. I'll share it here in the description box. But again, this is a data privacy, so I'm not going to give you his phone number. I'll only give you his email ID. And then you can reach out to him through his social media handle on LinkedIn as well as Twitter. I'll give you those details as well. Those are open public details and I can easily share, right, Nirmesh?
Yeah, absolutely on the point.
Thank you so much, Nirmesh. It was such a pleasure talking to you about how this Data Protection Act works in India and what are the benefits which are coming out for any individual in the future.
I totally enjoyed. Thank you, Ankesh.
Thank you, sir.